We've been following this case for the better part of a year, year and a half, but it's been about a month-long trial. The jury will ultimately determine Murdaugh's fate. Following his testimony, he's expected, again, back on the stand today. There are some questions about whether or not it was wise for him to actually sit in that witness stand. Criminal defense attorney and former Cook County prosecutor Matt Fakhoury joining me to actually look at this and what the defense is doing here. So in your mind, did he need to take the stand?
In my mind, I think it was a bad idea for several reasons. I think there was enough for them to use in order to possibly tell the jury that there's reasonable doubt. There was issues with the crime scene. There was contamination with that. Issues with his clothing not being analyzed. There was enough here where they could have maybe avoided it. It looks like, based on the exchange that he had with his attorneys right before he testified, that his attorneys didn't want him to testify and that he did. So I think any defense attorney in that situation, especially with all the things that you mentioned, the drug addiction, the financial crimes that he admitted to, wouldn't want him to take a stand for credibility purposes.
I mean, he had his son Buster up on that witness stand, the defense's real key witness here, besides Alec. And Buster was extremely composed, but you watched his son as he was seeing his father being questioned, and you could tell he was just very anxious. Composed still, but a little nervous, as I think somebody would be anytime their father is being asked questions. Did you blow your son or your wife's brain out? In terms of the prosecution now, how will they cross-examine him?
Well, they're doing a great job so far. So first of all, they established that this isn't a normal witness. First of all, he's a trained attorney. He's a highly successful attorney. He's not even an average attorney. So the jury is going to be suspicious of what he says. People are suspicious of attorneys, unfortunately, right?
You would know.
I would know, right. We pick our words very carefully and precisely. And he's coming off, I don't want to say combative, but the exchanges that he's having with the prosecutor over simple questions, he's not really answering in a straightforward manner. He's already in a position where the jury is looking at him like, hey, we're suspicious of this guy. And I think the way he's answering the questions does not come off as very relatable to this jury. And I think ultimately, that coupled with the fact that he admitted to all these other very brazen acts, like the lying and the financial crimes and the drug dealing and the drug addictions, I don't think it's going to bode well for him.
But, you know, again, the evidence has overall been very circumstantial. So could that still point to a jury that either results in a hung jury or a jury that cannot say without a shadow of a doubt that he indeed killed his wife and his son?
It is very circumstantial, and that's what they have to hammer home on the defense side, right? But this is almost a trial within a trial. Mm-hmm. They're talking about the financial crime, and if he's admitting that he lied to investigators, he lied to police, he lied to clients that he stood across from at a table, looked into their eyes and stole millions of dollars from him, they're not going to believe very much that he says. And when he says, I didn't do this, they can't piecemeal his testimony as, oh, he's telling the truth here, but he's lying here. No, once you lie, and you can't believe anything you say.
What's interesting is that he admitted, finally, that he originally lied about being so near the crime scene just minutes before his wife and his son were murdered. But he then came clean with that in testimony yesterday. So is there some psychological assessment that we could ascertain that makes us think he's trying to now tell you, I will be honest with you. I will, now that my life is crumbled around me, there's no hiding anything. So now I'm telling you the truth.
Well, I think his angle here and their theory is that this guy suffered from a drug addiction. And when you suffer from a drug addiction, you're not thinking clearly. Mm-hmm. And again, add that and couple that to the fact that he said, discovered the body of his wife and his son. He's not thinking clearly. He's not saying the right things or doing the right things. Again, to be very candid, when a jury hears all of these inconsistencies, right, not just one simple inconsistency like that, I don't think they're going to buy it when you, in addition, talk about all the other lies.
A track record.
Exactly, of things he's not telling the truth about. So I don't know if him testifying is going to serve him best in this case.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.